until the bitter end, and I'm really pleased to say that you're going to be rewarded with what I'm sure is going to be the best of our showcase panels. Certainly a very interesting topic. International strategy is, I think, something that is hugely important to universities right around the world, and certainly something that's hugely important to us at Times Higher Education. It's something that I think as a business, as a team, as a rankings organisation, as a team of journalists that cover higher education, and certainly as the convener of these summit series, it's something that we see as absolutely being integral to a university in 2019. This idea that academic talent, student talent, ideas, research, the way that we teach, the future leaders of tomorrow, it has to be intrinsically international. I think many of the stories that we've heard earlier today have touched on this topic, the idea that actually, you know, if you're thinking about setting up a new university, as Raj has done in the last 10 years or so, you really start to put international at the very foundation stone of what you do. It's become really a must-have for every university right around the world. And I'm really pleased that we have some exceptional examples of international strategies here today, a great panel to talk you through them. Let me very briefly introduce you to the panel. We have Niall ÖZTAŞ, vice-rector from Istanbul Gelişim University. Bernard Tan, who you'll know from earlier sessions, senior vice-provost of undergraduate education at National University of Singapore. Raj Kumar, vice-chancellor of OP Jindal Global University. Thomas Schneider, associate vice president international at SUSTech, down at the end. Sorry, this is in the order that I have them, but do wave and let people know who you are. Shinji Yoshizaki, vice president at Tokyo City University. Liyi Miao, Deputy Director of the International Affairs Office at Wenzhou Medical University, and Chen Weiying, Deputy Director, Office of Global Engagement at Zhejiang University. Now, I don't propose that we deviate significantly from the format of previous panels. I think if we can have the first half of this session hearing very briefly from each of you, either giving a quick overview of what your international strategy is, or if you prefer, perhaps focusing in on a highlight of your strategy, something you're really proud of that you think others in the room perhaps can really learn from. Either of those approaches would be absolutely fine. I do want to reward our loyal audience here in the final session of the day with questions later. So I noticed in earlier sessions, some people have been very liberal with their interpretation of 3 minutes. If you could try and stick to 3 or 4 minutes each, we will have time then for some good discussion as well. But we'll see how we get on, and I'll tap my watch at you and perhaps cough politely if you do significantly bust over your time. But let's kick off perhaps, Niall, with you.
Okay, message well taken. I'll be careful with the time. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm the vice-rector of Istanbul Gelişim University. Well, we have been carrying the university title only for 8 years, so we might be one of the youngest universities in the summit. About 2.5 years ago, well, we decided to internationalize. The main challenge was, well, we were going to ask young guys to spend their money, which we are a non-for-profit university, and also spend a good portion of their young lives. How could this be happening? You know, what did we need? That was the question that we asked ourselves. And the answer was so clear. We needed trust. As a young university, people should trust you so that they would leave their countries and come and study with you. Well, how can a good university build trust then? The next question. Of course, we did our homework. We did our, nice infrastructure, purchased buildings, have about 800 scholars teaching, and many other things. But more importantly, we said we should make sure that our educational system has an assured quality. So we applied to German, British, and American accreditation agencies, which was a crazy project, and accredited 54 of our programs. It took about 2 years to complete it. It was like a very difficult task. We had 26 international panels visiting our university in the last 1.5 years. There were, Boeing's purchasing manager, Ford's CTO, a famous German producer, famous chefs, in addition to the scholars that visited our university to audit our university for quality purposes. We were successful, and right now we are holding the record in Turkey in terms of the highest number of accredited programs. This provided us, well, little bit academics in it, what we call institutional legitimacy. You might be aware of it. There's an institutional theory, and it says, well, being efficient is not enough. Your stakeholders, your customers has to perceive you as a legitimate entity. So accreditation was a way of legitimizing our existence, and also was a fast track for us to build our future. So the second step of our strategy was to support this legitimacy, to build an organizational capacity. What we did was we organized different units. The most important for our internationalization strategy was the International Students Office. During the accreditation process, we hired 11 multilingual folks, especially for that office. They speak at least 3 or 4 languages, each of them. They're from also different countries. And we signed contracts with 103 agencies around the world, and they represent our university in their countries. And there are also other details, but to keep the presentation short, in the end, what we achieve is something beyond our expectations. When we started this process, we had only 28 students from 9 countries. At the end of 1.5 years, right now, we have 664 students from 56 different countries. Our original target was only 150 international students. Right now, we have close to 700. And our goal for the fall is another 1,000 new students. And so far, we have given the acceptances for more than 400 of them. And this increased our revenue, student revenue, tuition revenue, more than 10%. So for now.
That's great, thank you. And I love the idea that we all think of international as being a revenue source, but actually it also being a source of institutional legitimacy, and that idea of a young university that is international by design, which obviously we mentioned in the context of OP Jindal as well. But thank you, Niall. Bernard.
Can those at the back hear me? I cannot hear myself.
Can you
hear me? Okay, thanks. Now, international strategy is about 2 things.
Sorry, is the mic, we're having a hand mic coming.
I'll take the mic. I think this one is not working.
Run out of batteries by the end of the day.
Hello, can those at the back hear me? Now, international strategy is about 2 big things. Go where, do what, right? At the National University of Singapore, we send out about 2,200 students worldwide every year to more than 300 partner universities from 45 countries. And when we do this at great expense. So what we think is important is not to assume that everything that we do, every student that we send out, every university that we partner with, the partnership works. And in recent years, what we have been doing is that when these students finish their studies, they find employment, we look at their employment outcomes and compare their employment outcomes with those of students who have not gone on exchange, and to see whether or not there is a differential and whether or not there are some parts of the world that is more worth sending our students to. So in this regard, we use hard data to inform us when we fine-tune our internationalization strategy, right? So this is one thing that we do. Now, the second thing that we do is to find entrepreneurial hubs all around the world, send students there to be trained, bring them back, help them to start businesses. And as I mentioned this morning, we have done so we have trained more than 2,000 students. They have started more than 370 businesses. The program is still ongoing and still growing, so I will not elaborate on this. So for now, what I want to focus on is a part of our international strategy that is called the ASEAN strategy. Now, as a reasonably successful university embedded in the context of ASEAN, we believe with all our heart that we do have a regional responsibility. In other words, it is not good if we were to do very well by international standards and all our neighbors are nowhere to be found in the rankings. Right? And this is the reason why in the last 4 to 5 years, what we have been doing is to conduct university leadership training, management training workshops for our friends from around the region. And I've personally done talks with delegations that come from Vietnam, Thailand, Indonesia. We are doing so for Malaysia as well, and we hope that in time to come we can do this for all the ASEAN countries. Now, why is it so important that we work with our neighbors? I mean, apart from believing that we have a regional responsibility to play, we also think that we can collaborate with our neighbors on a mutually beneficial basis, because as we all know, ASEAN is a very big market, 640 million people. And when we have a lot of ideas, we work with would-be entrepreneurs from the different ASEAN countries. We can potentially roll out important services to benefit people from all these countries, get real big businesses started, and have and benefit both ways, right? And last week, when I was at Vietnam National University, at the invitation of the Chancellor to talk about our education setup, more than 100 senior faculties from the university showed up. And at the end of the talk, what our friends from Vietnam told me is this: every time when we see your very high rankings in QS or THE, we really don't know whether we should respect you. But if you bother to spend the time to come here, share with us your experience, help us, work with us, collaborate with us, help us to make progress, then we truly respect you. So this is something that is very close to our heart and something that is very, very important. And in short, if we do very well as a university, but our neighboring universities are nowhere to be found in the rankings, this is a small achievement that nobody cares about. But if we bother to put in the effort to reach out to all our friends from around the region, to help them make progress, move up the ladder, and maybe even one day compete with us, this would be a big achievement that everybody cares about. Yeah, and this is the summary that I have. Thank you.
That's great. Thanks, Bernard. And I think one of the things that during the judging process we were so impressed by in your strategy was this idea that, you know, you could be fierce competitors with your regional, but actually that rivalry is overcome by a desire to collaborate. And also, you know, there's a sense that sometimes globalization is seen as something that puts global priorities at the expense of local priorities, but you're managing to balance the two in a very interesting way.
So when we collaborate, we grow together, we make progress together, and we can move up the rankings together.
It's a great story. Thank you. Raj, let's hear from you.
All right. As some of you know, when we started the university, we were very clear from the very beginning that this is going to be a global university. And by calling yourself as a global university in a country like India, which has had a very historical struggles when it comes to connecting with, you know, the world at large, and a number of regulatory aspects have been challenged with regard to internationalization, we were conscious that what will distinguish our university from any other university, both public and private, is our global imagination. So there are 3 dimensions to that. First is our consciousness to recruit faculty members from across the world and faculty members who have an international orientation. 17% of our faculty members are non-Indian nationals recruited from 32 different countries and regions of the world. In addition to that, the rest of the Indian faculty members are almost over 60% of them are, in fact, over 70% of them are graduates of the top 200 universities in the world. So when you create such an focus towards internationalization, several things impact directly both into the classroom as well as the research. The second is our strong commitment to internationalization as far as students' aspirations are concerned. Students today are increasingly wanting to engage with the world at large, and hence from admission of students in which we use internationally engaged examinations. For example, we were the first and only law school in India which brought the US-based LSAT into India and used LSAT as the examination for assessing students for admission. Quite unprecedented in the history of Indian legal education. Similarly, when it comes to building collaborations and partnerships, we ended up building partnership with universities around the world, but we also were conscious that many partnerships with universities end up building were paper tigers. Nothing came out of it. MOUs were signed, photographs were taken, but when it comes to actual implication and impact for the life of students and faculty, there was so little. We were very conscious that every MOU that we sign will need to a substantial impact on the life of student or faculty, and hence we have over 200 student exchange programs which are live and kicking. Every year, over 350 Jindal students actually pursue student exchange program, dual degree program, and short-term study abroad program across the world, and we also diversified the international engagement. The third is something which is very critical to our university's mission, which is our research partnerships. We realized that when it comes to student aspirations, we could do a lot and keep the students happy and provide an aspiration. But when it comes to faculty, it takes a lot more effort. It requires a synergy. It requires a lot of, let's say, a faculty level engagement. And we are very fortunate that in the last decade, we have seen over 30 to 40 universities around the world in which we have substantive faculty exchange programs, joint conferences, joint publications, leading to joint research projects, both funded grants within universities and externally funded grants which are pursued by faculty members from both universities. This faculty level engagement has led to a substantial impact when it comes to research within the context of the university. So in some ways, internationalization is part of our DNA. We have just completed our 15-year strategic plan, and our goal is to move from 17% of international faculty to 30% of international faculty. We want to significantly move towards building a truly global university. Thank you.
Thank you, Raj. I love this idea. We live at a time, I think, when politicians are very, or increasingly looking sort of with quite insular attitudes towards the way that countries should operate. And I think universities can be a real antidote to that. This idea of you have Donald Trump's America first, and then you have Raj's international first, which is quite a nice counterbalance, I think, and really important for countries and for the world. So that's a great story. Thanks very much. We're sticking really well to time. This is going well, better than I was expecting. So Shinji, let's come to you.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Shinji Yoshizaki, Vice President of Tokyo City University. Our Tokyo City University sounds public university, but unfortunately we are the private university in Japan. Fortunately, thank you very much. So Korea University, TCU in short. And our university, TCU, has been changing rapidly towards the 100th anniversary of its founding in 2029, after 10 years. The internationalization is one of our most important and the top priority concerns to become the best value university for students. This is underway by the strong leadership by our president. We have 4 features on our strategy, and those are systematically combined in growing students. First is an outbound students mobility. This is our most distinct activity. We have a unique and a 4-month study abroad program named TAP. This is Tokyo City University Australia program, started 2015. When the president became the president just 4 years ago, he declares by the end of 2020, I want to send 500 students to go abroad and learn. But nobody believed such a large number of students would join the program. But 200, 300, And now we have 400 students decided to join the program this year. Maybe next year, we intend to send 500 students to the universities in Australia. This number is 1/3 of our students. TAP is an introductory program designed especially for the typical Japanese students who have little overseas experiences. Therefore, there are lots of merits for students. One is they can spend with confidence and security in the dormitory, and the credit they got can be exchanged so that students can graduate in 4 years and can improve their English language ability and deepen international understanding. We have also another program for after-graduate students to the university in New Zealand. Second one is an inbound student mobility. Under the Japan Science and Technology Agency's Sakura Science banner, we have welcomed more than 420 students and academics from overseas during past 3 years. And third one is a partnership. We established the Asia-Oceania 5-University Alliance last year. This is a consortium dealing with students and academic exchange program, and also double degree program and the joint summer camp, and so on. And the fourth one is an international internship. Many students have started to join and challenge overseas internship program now. Thus, our international activities are very expanding now. We analyze that our international strategy encouraged students to select our university. As a result, the number of university entrance examinees increased sharply for these 2 years. This leads to educational and financial improvement of our university. And TCU has been growing competitive now. That's it. Thank you very much.
Shinji, thanks so much. And I think one of the really interesting things I find reading through these submissions is the strategies always come from a local context. And in Japan's case, the idea of an aging population and the need to do things differently because of that aging population and the way that can then feed through into university strategies is fascinating. And I'm sure other universities in Japan will be watching very closely what you're doing and following suit. That's great. So we'll now move on to Liyi, please, for your remarks. Thanks.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. So it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure to attend this great event and to share with you the international strategy of Wenzhou University in the international for internationalization of our university. So first, let me introduce Wenzhou University briefly. It is a provincial university founded in 1958 and located at the southeast coast in China. And we are a provincial university, and with about 13,000 undergraduate students, 3,300 postgraduates, and 1,100 international students from 79 countries. So we know that right now we are all facing the international wave. So as a provincial university, we think that we should be linked, not only the provincial, but we should link to the universe, be linked to the world. Because we are facing more challenges and difficulties than those universities belong to the Ministry of Education or located at some big cities. In that case, Wenzhou University began to simulate international development strategy for the year 2020 and focusing on the discipline construction and talent cultivation. So here, as following, I would like to share with you some implementation of our university. So firstly, we wanted to collaborate with the international partners in the world. By now, we have a collaboration with 134 international universities, and also we are joined in the International Alliance to to improve our international impact. Besides, we also were invited by the UN Academy Impact Program to give lectures on the Chinese education reform and Chinese medical systems. And that is, can be, in that way, we improved our international impact. And the second implementation is in our educational reform. So we have the international reform for the syllabus and course for our students. And also we run the China Overseas Joint Degree Education Program with some top universities in the world, such as a PhD program with Lund University in Sweden, and with the University of Queensland, and also with China National University from Korea, and so on. And besides, we also set up a co-joint degree program in MBBS in Poland. That is the first medical program run by Chinese overseas. And the third is to establish a high-level research project with the top universities abroad. So by now we have established the top-level institutions with the top universities in the world, such as especially in the healthcare and life science, such as we have the Institute for Advanced Research with UQ in collaborating in the field of biomedicine. And also we have the Biomedicine Alliance with Monash University in Australia. And also we co-established a Life Science Institute with Lund University in Sweden, from Sweden. So in that way, we have our research level has been improved, and many publications have been published with a high FC. Besides, and the fourth is to foster our international talents. That is, we encourage our students and our faculty members to have overseas studies. We set up scholarship with about 6 million Chinese RMB. That is about $1 million to encourage students to study abroad for short-term course in the summer course or for exchange programs. And also we sent, in 2018, we sent out 953 students to overseas for study. And we also sent out our faculty members for the trainings in US, Australia. And besides the full-time foreign experts, we also recruit, we call it flexible system talents. That means these foreign experts can have working in our university for 1 to 3 months every year, so still keeping their own position in their own university. In that way, these policies boost this enthusiasm for international engagement for our teachers, our students, and foreign experts. So in last year, we have 128 foreign experts working in Wenzhou Medical University. That's a big number comparing to other universities.
Mm. Could we leave it there, just in the interest of time? I mean, it was great to hear some of the specific things that you're doing. And another area that I'd just touch on that I was really impressed with in your entry was the philanthropic work that you do. You know, some of the work that the university does with disadvantaged communities in Africa and Burkina Faso and places like this, things that you wouldn't necessarily think of first off in terms of international strategy, but they're a really important part of that engagement with the world. So that was some great stuff there. We can come back to additional points in the Q&A as well. But I'd like to now move on, if I can, to Chen Weiying and hear briefly from you, please.
Thank you, John. I'll use this. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Weiying from Zhejiang University. I'm very pleased to join this session and share with you some of the highlights of our ongoing global endeavor. So 3 out of 7 panelists are from China. So it's a sign that Chinese universities are really going global. Okay. Seriously, China's higher education has shown a new pattern of opening up and development. Like most top world universities, we have integrated an international dimension into our purpose and function. Last year, our university released our international strategy, Create to Impact. Create here focuses 6 areas: culture, research, education, administrative support, talent, and engagement. We all love acronyms, so the acronyms makes up a word, create. In the spirit of the strategy, scholarship for international students and funds for bilateral exchanges and research collaboration have been provided. In addition, large financial resources are allocated to sponsor multi-tiered talent programs and recruit high-caliber researchers across the globe. We also, over the past 2 years, we also recruit 40 staff to facilitate international activities at individual college level. This strategy promotes in-depth partnerships, now totaling 187 institutions in 37 countries, broadened education and research engagement with partner universities and industry like Philips and GE has led to joint publication of more than 3,000 papers last year and the establishment of a joint research center and labs. Since the release of the strategy, we have already felt its impact. Our progress in international rankings is pretty exciting. As you might, some of you might have already known, Zhejiang University is located in Hangzhou. It is one of the most picturesque and robust cities in China. It is the home to the e-commerce giant Alibaba and also home to many unicorn startup companies. It is a host city for 2016 G20 summit, and also it will host Asian Games in 2022. So the city is also becoming more and more international. It is only 40 minutes by high-speed train to Shanghai, East Coast, located in the East Coast of China. Now I would like to introduce a particular highlight in our internationalization. It is Zhejiang Edinburgh Institute, Joint Institute, ZJE. It's truly international collaboration across biomedical sciences and biomedical informatics. This joint institute won the 2018 Education Institutional Partnership of the Year in the British Business Award. This joint institute, which resides in a newly built international campus, has a strong emphasis on research, with leading international scientists working alongside colleagues from both Zhejiang and Edinburgh. A major innovation underpinning the collaboration has been the co-creation of dual degree programs for its undergraduate and postgraduate students. This has enabled the Joint Institute not only to combine both universities' complementary strengths and interests, but to co-develop a sustainable and innovative research-led pedagogical model at international level. Our new international campus, which hosts this joint institute, has a unique setting and vibe to offer opportunities for interdisciplinary and translational research with other international partnerships on site, such as Illinois and Imperial. Up till now, the fusion of the best of Eastern and Western pedagogies has helped to attract 755 students to this campus, 39% of whom are non-Chinese nationals. And the international campus has already built a talent pipeline into China and the global economy. With the pace of globalization accelerating and the unprecedented opportunities provided, universities of today all have begun to change. Through the further implementation of our strategy, we will move towards a more open and global university. And we are confident to prepare the next generation for a more complex and challenging world. That's all I want to share with you today. Thank you very much.
Weiying, thanks so much. And I think the really interesting morsel that I'd like to get into later perhaps is this idea of the sort of East and West coming together in a two-way exchange, especially around curricula and pedagogy and so on. It's fascinating. So we'll come to that in due course, but thank you very much. You made a very pertinent point at the outset that the final three presentations, all of course, coming from China, which does, I think, say something about where we are in terms of internationalization. So let's finally hear from Thomas, and then we can go on to Q&A.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody, and I'm happy to be here. So I can pick up on a number of issues that were mentioned by the previous speakers, but I really would like to emphasize the importance of the localization of a university for its global engagement in terms of the demands, the resources, the expectations, but also the accountability to the local community. I think that's a point that was made by many of the speakers. And I think SUSTech, the Southern University of Science and Technology, is a prime example of how essential it is to combine the local and the global elements. SUSTech was created as a brainchild of the megacity of Shenzhen to become a top global university, an elite university, rather small. We are currently at 6,500 students. And the design was for this university to capitalize on its location in the high-tech hub, which is the city of Shenzhen, facilitated to a very significant proportion by the city and also political support. We are an elite institution, but we are operating outside the national excellence streams like 985 and 211 or the double-track excellency program. To some extent, internationalization is ingrained in the DNA of our university from the very beginning. And I just have to a little bit to explain on the challenges that this has posed to our university from the beginning. The particular challenge was that we were so young, so founded only in 2012. And so the challenge of a young university is to gain reputation very quickly and to make progress in terms of its performance within a very short time across all sectors of its enterprise. So research, faculty building, education of students, and services delivery, right? And I just want to say that internationalization was not like another side aspect or a separate sector of this enterprise, but it is a sector that was from the beginning designed to infuse all these sectors. And the idea was to combine the best of Chinese and Western education and higher education ideas and to play them out in SUSTech. So this has started really also as an experiment. SUSTech was basically commissioned to reform higher education in China, and the university, for example, has implemented the best ideas from Western education in the university governments, the tenure and promotion system, the student service delivery, and also in choosing English as the language of instruction. We are advised by the International Advisory Council composed of 16 university presidents, and we have made at the beginning already senior hires of university leaders with 20 or 30 years experience in global higher education institutions. So internationalization is really, for us, an accelerator, a means, an instrument to perform very quickly, very well. One of the, of course, principles that are guiding all of us is to give our students a global experience, to expose them to the world, to make them into global citizens that are able to solve complex problems from a global outlook. So we have, of course, entertained a large number of mobility exchange agreements with partner institutions. We have systematically diversified our network of global partners to that purpose. And we have also doubled in the last year only the actively marketed study abroad programs. We are now among the leading institutions in terms of the percentage of our students that go abroad in mainland China universities. At the same time, I think we have been very keen on really doing something more sustainable, in shifting our focus from just, not really sustainable exchange agreements to engaging in degree partnerships with partner institutions across the globe. So more and more we develop degree partnerships that enable us to fast-track our students from a bachelor's to a master's degree, or to co-educate them for a doctoral degree, both at home at SUSTech and abroad. In the same line, I think, is the idea to collaborate more strategically with a small number of partner institutions. That is something that has come to the forefront in the last couple of years. And because this is like an opportunity for us to cluster different ideas of this enterprise around one engagement, starting from research to sending students abroad, to commonly create a common purpose in higher education. So for example, we have been working with MIT to create a center for engineering education. We are partnering with HEC Paris to create a center for business innovation in Shenzhen, with Milan Polytechnic to create a joint design school, with King's College London to build a new medical school and teaching hospital, and also with the University of Queensland, with which we partner in neuroscience. We have also shifted similarly our international student recruitment strategy towards a more targeted approach that focuses on countries, focuses on certain agents to provide us with students, to be data-driven in its approach. We have quite aggressively been recruiting international faculty to our university, even recruiting faculty from institutions that are ranked higher from us with quite some success in the last years. We have made progress in publishing with international partners, so more than 55% of our publications actually involve international collaboration. And we have quite successfully marketed ourselves as a global institution, not the least by hosting last year's Asia University Summit. I just want to conclude by saying that this is an open strategy to some extent. So we are not set on the laws, basically, that we have been working towards in the last years. But as much as higher education is constantly changing and the world is constantly changing, so we are also readjusting our strategy. And we are, as I speak, we are working on new instruments, global projects, plan a global academy or so, and considering new ideas that we might want to implement within the next months or years.
Great, thank you very much. And that's wonderful. We have about 20 minutes, so I want to say a huge thank you to my panel for being so self-policing in sticking to 3 or 4 minutes each. That was wonderful. And I think to get 7 very different universities with very different strategies, but giving us a really good insight into what you're doing and why in 40 minutes was fantastic. It does mean we have some time for Q&A. I've been very hard on my panelists, so I hope you won't let me down now by not having any questions. I can come to the audience if anybody wants to get us started. Yeah, there's a microphone here, so do tell us who you are and ask your question. Thank you.
My name is Fuad Jdeed. I'm the vice-chancellor of Al-Sharqiyya University in Oman. My question is, all these exchange programs, who pays for them? How do you, do the students pay the extra tuition?
All right.
Does the university subsidize?
Great, and it all comes down to money in the end. Who wants to pick that one up, Raj?
So there are 3 types of programs that we initiate. One is the student exchange program, and the second is the dual degree program, and third is the short-term study abroad program. The beauty of a student exchange program is that the partners with whom we have that relationship, the tuition fee is waived off on both sides because it's essentially an opportunity where a student moves from one university to the other, and if Jindal students go abroad, say with Cornell, for example, we have a partnership. Our students don't pay any tuition to Cornell, and when Cornell students come to Jindal, they don't pay any tuition. However, they obviously take care of food and accommodation and other costs, living costs is met by the respective students when they move. When it comes to short-term study abroad program, we have that with Harvard, with Columbia, with Oxford, with Fletcher, and a number of other institutions. Those are entirely paid by the students. It's subsidized because of our partnership. We negotiate, and we have friends in these universities who help us. It's not like the typical charge that these institutions would do if they do it for any other student who intends to do a short-term study abroad program. Of course, the dual degree program is also in some ways significantly subsidized because you end up saving a year or two when you sort of marry two programs and two institutions, schedule and tuition. And typically what happens is because of the relationship, there is a part scholarship also provided by the institutions. So there are no fixed models, but you are absolutely right. Internationalization does come with a cost. And in fact, many public universities in India, for example, are not able to pursue internationalization because of the fact that there are not enough resources or students may not be able to afford. And that's one of the biggest challenge for internationalization.
Thank you, Bernard. Let's.
To add to his point, I think what we do at the National University of Singapore is to do quite a fair bit of fundraising to support students from less well-off families who are going on exchange. And our goal is to make sure that nobody is left behind just because your family cannot afford to pay for your exchange.
Can I ask a slightly different question, but related, which is about money again? International, it's very appealing, I'm sure, to all of us in this room, but to some governments, especially those that fund universities, research and public funding, taxpayer funding that goes into universities, there's a question there about the extent to which you should be focusing on national interest. Australia is talking about introducing a national interest test for research that is funded by government, for example. We talk about global citizens, that's great, but then your graduates may go off to another country and make their life and earnings there and not pay taxes and so on and so forth. Do you ever come under pressure or consider this point of whether being very international questions your legitimacy within your own country? Would anyone like to tackle that question?
We all face that challenge all the time. I think it's important for us to recognize that internationalization actually strengthens the national imagination surrounding universities. I mean, for every global element, there is a very strong local element. And one of the things that we do in internationalization is not only Jindal or Indian students to go abroad. Every year we host over 300 plus students from around the world, including from China, from Australia, from United States, from UK, from Europe. And these students come for both short-term study abroad program, immersion program, as well as exchange and longer programs and they end up working with our faculty members, engage with the local community at large. So those partnerships actually ultimately help in providing a greater understanding of society. And that's a conversation what one has to have, and there is enough skepticism surrounding internationalization.
Could I perhaps ask one of the colleagues from one of our Chinese universities, many of the world's Western universities are hugely subsidized by Chinese students flowing out of China and studying in them. Is there any sense in China that outflow of talent, even though much of it may come back to China subsequently, is in any way a negative thing? Is that something you have to address?
Well, I give over to my Chinese partners here, but certainly there are strings attached. I think the China Scholarship Council or so has strings attached to some scholarship holders that pursue credit studies abroad or so, and there's a requirement for those students after defending their PhD or so to come back to China to give back to their country. Right? Maybe you can elaborate on this.
Yes. So I would like to add on this about the resources of internationalization. I think most universities are alike in this driving this purpose of internationalization, but we have different ways of funding or winning the funding. Like our university has a very long tradition, and we have many successful alumni. So alumni will be a very important feed of this funding of resource. And they your president is one of our alumni. Yeah. So we are located in a very, as I mentioned, a robust city and a province. We both come from the same province. Yeah. It's one of the wealthiest provinces in China. So. About the funding and the subsidies, it's not a very big challenge for us. So we have alumni who donate quite a bit sum of money to support this student mobility. So we have only last year, we have about over 74% of undergraduate students who spent some period of time outside mainland China. And also we have over 90% of PhD students to go abroad and study or do research outside the Chinese mainland. And we also have alumni who particularly donate some money to support research collaboration between Zhejiang and Stanford, or Zhejiang and Harvard. So they, it's about 150 million US dollars 1 year, each year, so for 10 years. So the alumni would like to give back, to support.
Philanthropic it's interesting because that philanthropic culture is something that's not all countries have managed to foster, but you've obviously done it extremely well. I do want to get some more questions from the audience. There's a question here, if we can get a microphone. Oh, sorry, let's take one from here and then another one down here. So we'll take in that order. Thank you.
Hello, question from Kazakhstan, Al-Farabi Kazakh University. I'd like to ask you if you are aiming at developing collaboration with world top universities, I mean top 10, and if you are, please share with us your strategy, your experience. Thank you.
So who's aiming to partner with the very top universities? And should that be a priority?
Why should they work with this? Sorry, my mic is not working. Can I?
Oh, yeah. We take this one here. This is.
I'm sure many of you. Is it working? No, it's not working.
Can we get this mic on the handheld on the stage?
Hello. Okay, now it's working. I'm sure many of you are aware of our partnership with Yale University, the liberal arts college, right? So many universities in the world ask us, how much money do you give to Yale to lure them out of New Haven? Prior to their engagement with us, they have never gotten out of a New Haven. And in fact, the correct answer is we didn't give them a single cent. Right? We basically tell them that you guys are pioneers of liberal arts education in the US, starting from 1701. And now when liberal arts education is very popular in the US, you are well known as a pioneer. In time to come, there are no liberal arts college prior to our collaboration in Asia, so we are starting the first one, and in time to come, when liberal arts education becomes popular in Asia, would you like to also be known as a pioneer? And to them the answer is obviously yes. So we didn't pay them a single cent. They came out and they collaborated with us, so that in time to come, when we see liberal arts schools proliferating all over Asia, you can claim that, oh, they are the pioneers as well as us.
So appeal to their vanity appears to be the answer, which is always good with people at the very top of the tree. Let's have another question here. And
yes, I'm Dr. Habil from Arab Open University in Bahrain. Now, we really appreciate the rosy kind of pictures and strategies you have had in different universities. I just reflect on most of the universities in this part of the world. There are a lot of restrictions and requirements by local accreditation authorities, such that sometimes even for a staff to go for a training, they have to get approval from the Ministry of Higher Education of a particular country. But you are talking of so much of implementing a lot of programs. Have you had any challenges with your ministries, and if at all you have had, how have you overcome this so that you've reached this level without any restrictions from your ministries of education or quality assurance bodies in your local?
That's a great question. I mean, we're hearing about great success stories here, but it can't always have been free and easy and without barriers. Who'd like to pick that one up? Tell us about some of the hard times you've had as you've forged to the phenomenal success that you've had. Niall, you're looking like you've had some hard times.
Not really hard times. Also regarding your earlier question, internationalization is a public policy in Turkey. So government is encouraging and wanting the universities to become international institutions for research services, for economical reasons, for probably soft power reasons. So there are incentives, but of course in all kinds of bureaucracies. I'm a professor of bureaucracy also. In all kinds of bureaucracies, there are transaction costs. Sometimes it might be difficult, but there are not like specific difficulties we are facing.
And Raj, you're quite unique in India in your approach. Have you had?
So yeah, well, India is a country which is known for what I call over-regulated and under-governed in terms of institutional imagination. So a lot of challenges. I think almost 50% of my time is spent on dealing with various regulatory bodies, government agencies. In the early phase of our institutional building, it was much more. And so a lot of effort was made to build an institutional character which ought to have the legitimacy, because India also has another challenge, which is that historically India has grown through public institutions, and many private institutions which came about also did not have the kind of academic standards, and so there is a pejorative character to that. So in that context, when a decade ago, when we were set up as a not-for-profit private university, there were much more challenges and skepticism. But that continues in different form, and it's a constant effort to engage and to sort of gain the kind of trust and legitimacy. I would like to say that we want to move to the next stage. We have, fortunately, the last year has been fantastic. We are one of the only 2 Indian private universities among the 52 which have been given autonomy by the Ministry of Human Resource Development, Government of India. And just a few weeks ago, we've also been recognized by the Government of India and recommended for declaring as an institute of eminence, both of which makes us quite unique and exceptional when it comes to autonomy, but that's not the norm for most institutions in India.
And perhaps, Shinji, I could ask you as well. I mean, we talked about you having this local context, the aging population in Japan that is perhaps requiring universities to be more outward-looking and all the reasons for that. But it's not something that Japanese universities have done for very long. It's not something with a long track record. So you must have had to overcome certain hurdles and barriers as you sought to internationalize your university.
Yes, maybe, as you know, Japan is rapidly aging country now. So the Japanese
Do you need the microphone? Bernard, if you just, thank you.
As you know, Japan is the very rapidly aging country now. So the Japanese government recognized the urgency to grow the young people to act globally very, very rapidly. So there are lots of grants from the Ministry of Education, and the Ministry of Education forced university to change rapidly. So we are now making effort to change, but even the grants are very much competitive. So fortunately, the Ministry of Education supporting us, our university. So there are there are 5 categories in supporting the university, the grant this year. But our university is only one selected high school university according in that 5 categories. So now, every universities in Japan is making effort to get grants.
But it's come from
changing rapidly.
The impetus has perhaps come from government rather than any barriers being put up.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. I wonder if I could, we're almost out of time, and I know that with the last session of the day and there'll be buses waiting for us, but perhaps I could just ask one last question and perhaps pose it to our 3 colleagues at the end coming from Chinese institutions. And that's about many of you talked about the partnerships you'd struck up between your own universities and universities in the US or UK or the other sort of developed Western systems. And I suppose there's a sense of it needing to be a two-way exchange of not just talent and student and faculty talent, but also approach and pedagogy and curriculum as well. And I wonder if you could perhaps give us a sense of how you think being international in those regards benefits your universities and in turn benefits China and Chinese society.
May I take our university as example? So because our university is a provincial university, so we don't have much resource. So the only way for us to improve ourselves, to develop, to be listed as a top medical university in China, we think that it should be internationalization. So that's why we focus a lot on the internationalization for the discipline construction and the talent cultivation. So as you said just now, what's the benefit? So actually, we different from other universities. The funds from the financial support are mainly from our university ourselves. We set a budget for about 20 million RMB each year for internationalization for our faculty and students. And also, after that, after several years of internationalization, so right now, the international ranking of our university developed very fast. In last year, we were one of the 10 fast-growing universities in China according to the comprehensive ranking of IDM research. And also, we are ranked in the number 85 of all the Asian institutions in the Nature Index in life science, and also for the ESI ranking, we are also not occupying number 78 in all the Chinese universities. Yeah. At the provincial university, I think that the discipline has been improved a lot. That's what we get from it. And also our talent, our students and teachers can get the global vision. That is the most important.
And I think the rankings are a great final output, evidence that things have changed. But I wonder perhaps either or of you could give us a concrete example of something that actually has changed in the way that you go about your business as universities, rather than thinking about rankings and the output. Some way that your pedagogy has changed or your curriculum or something like that.
Yeah. I think it's if we just focus on pursuing excellence and not regarding, like taking ranking as a very important factor, it will just happen. Yeah. So we combine the best of the Eastern and Western pedagogies in our international campus, which is like a pilot study in our internationalization. And we have reaped significant benefits. In one of the international rankings, Zhejiang has risen 50 places over the past 2 years. And this internationalization has greatly raised the international profile of our students and staff. Yeah. And with our partners, they also have a lot of gains. So it's a plus, both ways. Yeah, and it's a plus all round.
As it should be for any good partnership. Thomas, perhaps we can leave the final word to you on this.
Yes.
Well, I just want to mention that our university was created with basically the mission to also change higher education in China and reform and experiment with it. And one of the ambitious goals for us is to maybe change the way of how knowledge is being created and transferred to students. And I just briefly mentioned, and we cannot elaborate, but I'm happy to speak after the session about this, the idea to collaborate with MIT about engineering education is actually to make engineering education more interactive, not like frontal education as it used to be in the past, but rather focused on problem solving, like giving the students like a bag with tools or so, and giving them a problem in engineering and say, you have so and so much time, come up with a creative solution of how to solve this problem, right? And so I think there's a very direct benefit here to how students can grow up in a different culture of learning, right?
And that's a great place to end, I think, this idea of a culture of learning that actually we can all learn from one another, and it's only through successful international strategies that that sort of cross-fertilization of ideas, of approach and so on really happens. So we've run out of time, unfortunately, but please do join me in thanking a fantastic panel for their contributions. And that's it for the day. I believe we have buses waiting to take us back to the hotel, and a wonderful reception to look forward to as well. But thanks so much for being here for the final session. Thank you. It was great.